Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge Wurundjeri country, as that is where this podcast is recorded, and extend this acknowledgement to all First Nations peoples, past, present, and emerging. This podcast takes a holistic approach on community building and knowledge sharing that I hope you can utilise in your life. Let's do this.
Marmalade and coffee black. Lesson plans are on the stack. Ready for the students' track. Gonna find our groove.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Stranger in the Staff Room, where myself, Zoe Zammit, or as the kiddos call me, Miss Zammit, I am a first-time teacher sharing lifelong stories, and it feels so good to be back on the mic. It probably doesn't feel like it for you guys, but it has been yonks since I have been on this microphone. I think the last time I recorded was probably January, February, so during the 6-week summer break, because we've had some awesome teachers and awesome public figures in the education space who were kind enough to offer me their time for interviews. So if you haven't checked out those episodes, please do so. They are so insightful, and you know, a lot of you have really been enjoying them. They're probably my highest streamed. So thank you so much for enjoying them as much as I did. So I recorded a lot of them during the 6-week holidays. And so they've sort of been keeping me afloat while I've been trying to navigate term one as my second year as a full-time teacher. So yeah, it feels strange to be back on the mic, but I'm so excited because I just feel like I haven't been getting my creative juices flowing in terms of my voice. Like, I talk for a job, but that's the people who don't want to listen, teenagers, whereas you guys chose to listen. So, like, kind of a big deal. But yeah, officially finished my last set of marking for the term, except for 2 papers, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to be delusional this episode, okay? Because that's sometimes that is the best tip and trick I have for marking. So yeah, if you couldn't tell by the title, this episode is my tips and tricks for marking. Do I feel qualified to record? No. I am probably the worst qualified to talk about tips and tricks for marking. Does that mean that I should be recording it? Yes, because especially with the interviews that we've been having and the, you know, different perspectives that we have been getting, Stranger in the Staff Room's always been about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And now that we're bringing more people in, I want it to be about the student, the teacher, and the human. So I feel like me recording this episode for you guys is showing that we're all human and showing that we're all students and we're all finding new strategies that work and trying to be resilient. So who better to share that than the girl that fell flat on her face by not trying and not realizing that she's still a student in life by death by marking last year. So I've been getting a lot of advice and, you know, been trying some different strategies this term to improve on my marking ability, not in terms of like quality feedback, but getting it done. I am a little bit of a perfectionist, which I assume a lot of you are, because if you are teachers, you are inherent people pleasers. Guilty. So there's got to be a little bit of perfectionism in you. So yeah, I really feel my perfectionist come out, and we can't have that in order to keep the human side of us balanced in the student, teacher, human framework. So that's why I'm here today. So without further ado, grab your tea, grab your coffee, do whatever you do to get relaxed. Let's get into it.
Every day we learn and grow, setting minds all in a row, teaching them what they need to know, feeling that we're smooth.
Okay, so I feel like also I've got a good scope of different types of marking because I am an English and a psychology teacher. So I mark a lot of essays and I also mark a lot of short answer questions that are looking for keywords. So I feel like I can provide feedback for all. Don't ask me for maths like how to mark maths papers. I'm going to assume that the short answer question section of these tips and tricks will help you, But if you have any further questions, feel free to connect with people in the Stranger in the Staff Room community. My link tree is in the show notes. There's so many ways to connect. And you will definitely find an awesome maths teacher who will have some tips and tricks specifically for your subject. Ask any of my kids. I will tell them that I am a brain teacher and a word teacher. I never claim to be a number teacher. So do with that what you will. Before we get into the tips and tricks, I thought I'd give you a little bit of a backstory. I touched on a little bit of it in my burnt out, exhausted state that I recorded my 1 year done as a teacher episode, which again, have a listen to that if you haven't already. That really encapsulated how tiring your first year of teaching is. So I'm really glad I did record that and publish that. So if you want a bit of a reality check that, you know that will get better because here I am, then feel free to listen to that one first. That touched on it a little bit, but basically I was really, really, really down on myself at the end of last year because I was so certain that I was a shit teacher. Like I was certain I was a shit teacher. And, I did a lot of therapy sessions, different kinds of therapy last year. And one of the psychologists that I did see, she asked me why I think that. And I said, there's so many tasks that I have to do and I never get them done on time. And, I try and give back feedback, but, I never do it in time. And the kid's constantly waiting and I'm constantly having to push things back and, blah, 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 blah. I forget to mark roles, all that sort of stuff. And so then once I finished going on my spiel, she said, do you realize that all of those tasks that you're saying are admin? That's not teaching, that's admin. And I was like, no, but it's all teaching. She goes, no. That's what they sell to you. Because she also used to be an educational psychologist. So she used to work in a school. And she said, do the kids ask you questions? Do they feel comfortable asking you questions? I said, yes. She goes, do you have a laugh with your kids every day? I said, yes. Do you know that you've taught at least one kid something new every lesson? I said, well, yeah. She goes, okay, you're a great teacher. Doesn't mean you're a great marker, and that doesn't mean that you're less of a teacher. And so my sort of mantra that was getting me through the end of last year after that was, I'm a good teacher, but a shit marker. It's not the most positive thing in the world, but it was better than what I was thinking, and it allowed me to accept myself as I was, because I never claimed to be a data entry gal. I've got ADHD for sake. Like, the whole disability surrounds admin. Like, it doesn't matter whether you say that it's a superpower or a disability, doing admin is our kryptonite. It's as simple as that. So it really helped me reframe, because I had come to terms with my ADHD diagnosis. I'm very proud of how my brain works. So to know that I was a good teacher but a shit marker, it was almost like, oh, no shit. Like, I knew that. So that did help me push through till the end of the year. But there was a lot of burnout that I had to recover from. And it was the lowest that I felt in a long time, not in terms of necessarily like self-worth. Like, there of course was aspects of that, but it was more just tired. And, I didn't have the tolerance for people. I wanted to see my friends, but God, it was hard to get out of bed. And, things like, I know there are different house chores that do affect people with ADHD and they have a lot of task paralysis around them. But for example, putting a load of washing on, I don't have a problem with that. I say with an overflowing basket of dirty washing, but we won't talk about that. But like, that's not an issue for me. But like, the fact that I was obligated to do something was enough to make me cry, because there was just so much overload by the end of last year. And basically, without getting too much into it, I had meetings that basically said, you cannot let yourself get that behind with marking again. If I didn't remind them that I was a first year teacher, I think that would have been a lot harsher on me, because the people I were meeting with, they looked at me and they were like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, this is my first 12 months of not only teaching, but of a full-time job. Like, I don't know where I went wrong. That's why I'm meeting with you. Like, I'm confused. And they realized really quick that I never had any strategies. Like, uni will teach you how to make a 10-page lesson plan, but they won't teach you how to mark efficiently, right? And that's one thing that you got to keep in mind when you're doing your degree, I would say. So basically, we went through some strategies, and most of them are the ones that we're going to go through today, because I don't want any of you to be put yourself in the position that I did. It was like I was falling down an abyss that I didn't realize I was falling down until I hit face first on the ground. I was going to clap, but then realized, probably not good for audio. But that's exactly what it felt like. I didn't realize I was falling until I fell face first. And I don't want that to happen to you guys. I want you to already have the strategies in place for you to thrive. So that's my backstory. We'll take a quick break because I've just yapped your ear off for a long time there. And when we come back, I will go through my tips and tricks for short answer questions and for extended writing, which also known as essays. So don't go anywhere.
Laughter in the classroom halls, answering those curious calls, cheering when a student falls and gets back up anew.
Alrighty, we're back. The first tip was actually from my mum, and I used to hate when she said it, but then when these burnouts started happening, I realized she was right. Start your marking as soon as you get the chance. Like, I know the fact that your kids finish an assessment, you kind of want to celebrate with them and take that day off. I'm sorry, but you can't. Even if you just mark one paper, you've got the momentum going. You had one less, because it's so easy, if you're anything like me, to take that first day off and then something will be more important that next day. And because you didn't have the momentum from the day before, you don't realize that there's something missing there because it was never there in the first place. So please, please, please mark at least one paper, or at least start to mark at least one paper when you get the first chance. So I'm not saying stay up until all hours of the night just to mark this one, the first reasonable time. So for example, if my kids sat an assessment periods 1 and 2 and I had 3 and 4 off for planning, I'd mark at least one in period 3. So then at least you've started and the momentum's there. Now, this next step is interchangeable with the starting the marking as soon as you can, but I do things out basically. So I'm just going to go through the ways that I do it. So you get your planner out and you work backwards. Oh, actually, I'm going to go get my planner, because this is going to be an ad that's not an ad. It's not sponsored at all, but I love my planner and I love the woman that made it. 1 second. Ooh. There we go. Okay, so if you don't have a Steph Pace planner, do it. Gun to head, do it. Steph Pace also, this isn't her selling point for her organization resources, but she also has ADHD. So there are actually little reminders and little affirmations built into the planner that sort of catch you off guard and really just center you again, which I find so beautiful. And all these bookmarks, right? And everything's just so nicely laid out. So she's got planners in general, but she's also got teacher planners. Now, as far as I know, I don't think she's a teacher. So she's worked with actual teachers to make sure that this works, right? So just making sure there's no confidential information. The quality isn't too good on the camera to pick this up, but basically it's 8 periods and it's sort of like a column a day. And how I do it is I have stickers working out any new sort of events and things that I have to do on that day. But in the spare parts, I'll put an erasable pen after, I've written down the due date to get these marks back. I'll work out how many kids I have to do and I'll divide that by how many days. So we have a 2-week turnaround at my work. So that's usually, if I don't include the weekend, it'll be 10 days. But I will include the weekend because I'm not stupid. I gotta have to work over the weekend. Unfortunately, that's the nature of the job. So we've got 14. So I would divide whatever number of students I have by 14. That's how many you've got to do each day. The next step is to write each of those into each day. I know it's going to feel pedantic, but if you don't write it, you'll forget it. Again, it's that momentum. You don't miss what didn't exist. Oh, that rhymed. It's like I'm teaching poetry at the moment. Someone stop me. You don't miss what didn't exist. All right. So write it down every day in your planner whenever you have your planning periods, or if you have to do it after or before school. Unfortunately, you have to. And writing it down. Then you're going to look at it all. You're going to see how busy you are on those days, and you're going to ask yourself, is this achievable? And if there are going to be days where it's going to be quite impossible to do the marking, are you going to be able to survive the rollover? So, for example, I have 2 year 8 English classes, and they did creative short stories. These don't know what short means. They were fantastic. Look, don't get me wrong. These kids were so creative, and I was so proud of them for trying techniques that they've never learned in their life. But some of them were long, and they needed that. But wow. So I needed to consider that when I divided it by the 14. I have 55 kids, so 2 classes, 55 kids due in the same 2 weeks. That meant 4 short stories every day. Now, you probably might, if if your stamina for reading is quite good, you might think, yeah, that's achievable. I looked at that and almost vomited in my own mouth. I was like, that's too much. I can barely get through 2 without needing to take a nap. And that's without even saying that I have to teach those days as well. So that was really hard. And at first I started feeling myself sink back to how I was last year and just thinking, no, this is what everyone's going to do. Just push through. But my sort of affirmation for this year is I need better than what I've had always. So when I started feeling that mentality of everyone's got to do it, I've just got to push through, it sounded like what I had. And I need better than what I've had always. So I asked for help because the worst that the school could have said was no. So I reached out to the person who could grant extensions for marking and explained to them, because these weren't the only assessments I had. I had other classes. I have also 2 year 10 classes. So I had them as well. So I just sort of said, trying to cope. I'm not really. I'm trying to learn from my mistakes from last year. Would a week's extension be acceptable? They gave me 5 days extension, which I was waiting for them to say no. And not just me. They gave the whole year 8 English team those extra days. Like, I'm going to be honest. I felt like Superman. I felt like Supergal, right? Because I just helped out my whole team from speaking up. So the episode that I recorded called When to Ask for Help, again, if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. This is almost the manifestation that I was trying to bring with that episode. Like, I recorded that episode to reassure myself that it's okay to ask for help. This is now the reward. I asked for help and it's benefiting everyone. So I was very, very, very proud about that. So, yeah. Start your marking as soon as you get the chance. Get your planner and work backwards. So by getting the number of students and dividing it by how many days you have until the marking's due. Are you able to manage that? If it rolls over, are you able to manage that? If not, ask for help. The worst they can say is no, right? Okay. Now we're going to go into short answer questions. So if your subject has short answer questions or like questions where you can sort of skim for keywords, first of all, jealous. I only have one subject that's like that, and I always want to have psychology in my roster because I need something to break up the English. Like, I love teaching English, but the ADHD reading stamina, no. I do not have any reading stamina, so I need the psychology to break it up. So jealous if all of your subjects are short answer questions, but it doesn't mean that it's easier because there are a lot of nuance with these short answer questions. I mark my short answer question assessments question by question. So I would get student A, question 1, answer that. Student B, question 1, answer that. And if that's even a lot, if it's 1A, 1B, 1C, I'd just do 1A for all my kids, 1B for all my kids. Just, again, to get the momentum, but also you'll find that your marking is a lot more consistent because you don't have to switch what knowledge and skills that you're looking for. So I'd highly recommend going question by question. And ever since I have been doing that, my psychology marking has been so successful. Oh my God. And there's a lot less kids that are finding gaps in like, this kid got that mark, but this kid didn't. So there's not as much discrepancy because, once again, word and brain teacher, not a number teacher. So that's my best hack I can give with that. If you have any other hacks for those short answer questions, please feel free to pop them in the comments, because like I said, I only have one subject that's like that. So you might even be a more experienced teacher that's found something else that's helpful. But again, go at your own pace. If you think that there's something else that could help our community, pop it in the comments. Now, extended writing or essays. These have been my nightmare. I love hearing and reading what these kids have learned and their ideas, because some of them are so intelligent they don't even realize. But because of the mere amount, it's so tiring to get through all of them. And when that perfectionist bubble comes up and you want to, add your thought on every single detail, it just can't happen. And it's heartbreaking at first. So step one is accepting that. And that doesn't make you a teacher. It makes you human. Because if you asked the kids to do that, they're just not handing in their homework those 2 weeks. Like, really? So the fact that you're actually doing the homework, you're already doing better than what they could ask for. So give yourself a pat on the back for that. Now, I just want to preface this step that I have. It does involve AI. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't alternative options to AI. Personally, for me, the weight that it takes off my mental health is something that I need to prioritize over the potential environmental factors. So, this next tip is going to involve AI, but if you stick around, I will give a non-AI alternative. All right. And if there are any non-AI alternatives that you do have, pop them in the comments. For essays or extended writing, you'll have a rubric, right? You'll have a marking scheme. Put that rubric into AI, so whatever your preferred is. Also have a chat with your school on what their preferred is, because they might have a certain AI that keeps information confidential about the school, like it's not used in training modules for AI, so that can help if you're, concerned about the ethics of it. So have a chat with school, and then once you've decided what the preferred AI is, put the rubric into AI and ask it for a comment bank that fits your school's selected feedback model. So for example, our school is what went well, even better if, where to next. I want to write the most individualized, profound, Socrates, Aristotle-like comment on each and every kid. This has helped take the perfectionism out of it, because it has told me what I need to write. So it takes a rubric and it gives you comments based on specific criteria. So it is individualized, but I don't have to think about particular things.
Hello. So, as you can see, I have done an outfit change. Basically, your girl did a goof, and I said that I would be giving tips on how to do one of my strategies for extended writing marking without the use of AI. And then I was so excited that I got the podcast done that I just hit stop, save, shut the laptop, forgot to record it. So here we are. The only difference, if you're choosing not to use AI, is to get the rubric, and you're just going to write out the criteria for maybe 5 marks, 3 marks, 1 mark in full sentences. So for example, if one of the criteria is demonstrated a detailed and interconnected exploration of the chosen theme, you can then put, you have demonstrated a detailed and interconnected exploration of your chosen theme, and go from there. And if you are at a school that is also what went well, even better if, where to next, it just means that you are shifting the way that the sentence is phrased to fit that category. So like that example that I gave is what went well. And you could say, your response would have been even better if you demonstrated an interconnected blah, 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 blah. Obviously, it does take more time than AI, but you're probably going to get similar results. So if you're willing to, because as I say, everything costs something, right? Everything costs something. So if you're willing to pay with time and energy to get that done, it's less time and energy that you're going to spend afterwards anyway, because you're not going to be thinking about it for each and every kid in the moment. You'll have your bank and you'll be ready to go. So the only difference, if you're not using AI, is to write out the sentences yourself. Maybe even on a Word doc, so then you can just copy and paste it into whatever learning management system you're using. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. enjoy the rest of the video or podcast, however you're listening to it. Yeah. Bye.
Once you've done your rubric, you've worked out the kids' percentage, I want you to pick one comment from each section. So if your school is what went well, even better if, where to next, pick a comment from each that you think would be the most helpful for that child. That's what you put as their feedback. That's what you send them away with. Moving on, dust the hands next, right? And in terms of those longer sort of essays, I like to order them in a way that probably doesn't work for most people. So order the papers intentionally. Order them in a way that works for you. One way that the colleague of mine who I've had meetings with for strategies on how to improve marking, she said, you can turn this into a game. You can try and guess the exact order of the percentages your kids are going to get. Like take a photo of the order or write down the order that you put them in. See if you're right by the time you've calculated scores. So that's a way to gamify it. Me personally, I need momentum because of that stamina. I need the dopamine hits. I need to feel like I'm achieving a lot. So I order mine shortest piece to longest piece. And I remember mum saying to me, keep in mind that you're keeping the longest till last. Are you sure? And I'm like, I'm sure, mum, because by that point, adrenaline's kicking in. So we're good. I can read double as fast and the stamina's there. I just might need a nap for 3 days. So that's how I order it for my brain. Do whatever works for you, but make the ordering intentional. All right. So using that comment bank to help you with your rubric and feedback, ordering the work in a way that works best for you. The last thing I do want to leave you with is that, and if you have to print this out on your desk or have little sticky notes with it written down, put this somewhere that you're going to see it. It does not have to be perfect. It just has to be done. Let me say it louder for the people in the back. It does not have to be perfect. It just has to be done. And this sort of affirmation or mantra or rule, whatever you want to call it, it really sat uncomfortably with me when I first got told this. And then today, I was in a mad rush to finish my marking. And I put a note in between, and the last one, it says it does not have to be perfect, it just has to be done. Now, if I look back, it was the piece of marking I've ever done. But the kid got the exact same feedback, got the exact same score, and he didn't come up to me questioning it. He was actually quite happy with his mark, right? It does not have to be perfect, it just has to be done. Yeah. I also got a really, insightful piece of information from the person that, gave me the whole gamified order marking. They said that, studies have shown that any feedback that does not allow the student to actively interact with their work after they've completed it is actually a waste of time. It will not enter their consciousness. It will not enter their long-term memory for them to retrieve later. And as a psychology teacher hearing this, I'm like, no I felt so dumb because that's what I teach kids. If you don't actively interact with what you're learning, you're actually not learning it. It's just noise. And that's exactly what I was giving my kids, noise, because I was basically rewriting their work for them. And those are my tips. Like I said, am I the person that is qualified to do this episode? No, but I hope it reassures you that we're all human and we're working this out together because we are first-time teachers. And hopefully this will be a lifelong story of remember when I used to suffer with my marking? What a joke. Now I'm a boss, right? Hopefully we can all get there together. And if you have any other tips or questions or, you just want to have a rant about the marking that we have to do, because you're right, it's a lot. Please comment down below. Please follow or subscribe to the podcast. Leave a review, a 5-star review, hopefully. I would love to hear your thoughts and inputs. It's so good to be back on the mic. And I cannot wait to bring you the next episode, which is another interview with another public teaching figure. And that's all I'm going to give you for now. So stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed and followed for when that happens. Thank you so much for joining. Stranger in the Staff Room, over and out.
Teaching vibes were in the air, sharing knowledge everywhere. stars with such care. This is what we do.